Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hanley Effect. I'm John Dyben.
I'm Rachel Docekal.
Hey there, Dr. D.
Hey, Dr. D. How you doing
I'm
today?
doing well.
You are?
I am. It's funny. A couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
I got an opportunity to do a presentation for Palm Beach County therapists and other professionals in Palm Beach County.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, well, it
It
was
was a
so
huge
cool.
success.
It was so cool, so fun.
Mhm.
But as part of this it was on dealing with trauma, and it was actually a
Mm.
suicide prevention training. But one of the things that I talk about that everybody knows what PTSD is, the
Mhm.
post traumatic stress disorder, and everybody. But there is another side to that that I even in this time when we were doing this training, no one had ever heard of something called post traumatic growth.
You're kidding.
It's an amazing phenomenon. Trauma it can destroy people, but it can
Mm.
also be a catalyst for positive change. And
Yes.
I'm excited today because we have AnneMoss Rogers with us today. AnneMoss is a writer. She's owner of the blog Emotionally Naked. She's a professional speaker, and she talks about mental health, about suicide awareness and education, and she also talks and writes about post-traumatic growth and the hope that can be associated with it. So I'm really excited, and I want to say hi, Ann Moss. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How about you all?
We are great. We're great. I am so excited that you're here today.
Oh, stop. I give you an hour to cut that out. No.
it and it really that it is true. It's funny. It was just less than 2 weeks ago, and it's a room full of mostly mental health professionals, and even mental
Really?
health professionals are not familiar with this idea of post traumatic growth, of turning pain into purpose is one of the things that you talk about. But we like to, we always look forward to me stopping talking. And what we'd love to know, Ann Moss, is would you tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and whatever you're willing to share about your journey that got you where you are right now?
So, how did I get to where I am today? Well, I never thought I would be where I am right now. I had a digital marketing company and I thought that was my dream. And then I can't say that I've felt that way about it. And then we started to struggle a lot with our younger child, Charles. He started using a lot of substances, misusing a lot of substances. And the year prior, he had said, I'm never going to do that. And then all of a sudden, he was. And then he got on homecoming court, and not long after that, his drug use escalated. So this is like a really popular kid. And I couldn't figure out why he was using. And, we did the regular punitive stuff, taking away the car keys, putting our foot down, measures that really don't work with today's kids. But we were kind of lost. He would end up becoming addicted to heroin, but that was a pretty long trajectory to get there. But it all started with those first substances when he was trying to numb thoughts of suicide. I did not know he had thoughts of suicide. But to a teenager, hey, this works, right? It's bad, but it's not as bad as killing yourself. So that's kind of where his mindset was.
Right.
We would end up sending him to wilderness, basically having him kidnapped out of his bed and sent there, introducing a new trauma. And that's not like plan A, right? That's when you get
Right.
desperate and you're wanting to save a child's life. From there, he'd go to therapeutic boarding school and then he would come home some 22 months later. And it was in that period when he came home that he started using heroin. And I didn't know it. And about 10 months in, I would figure it out. He would confess. He'd go to detox, to rehab, to recovery house. He'd relapse within 24 hours. They took him back to detox because that was their protocol. He saw a friend and the two of them walked out together. I get this phone call. I don't even know where he is at this point. He's walked out of detox. I am so emotionally bereft at this point because
Right.
I'm ready for recovery, right? It's been a
Of
long road to
course.
get him there,
Right.
but he's not ready yet. And he would, 2 weeks he's out there. I get this phone call that I would find out later was my last phone call. And my husband and I are eating dinner the next night. And our plan had been to go pick him up the next day. But the police called, and in the back of a police car in a parking lot, they shared the worst news of our lives and told us they had found our son dead that morning. I thought for sure it had to be an overdose, right? I mean, he was addicted to heroin, but the policeman said it was a suicide, and when he told me the method, that left no question. And my first thought was, how could I be such an awful mother that my child would leave me this way? But it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about
Right.
my love. And, I wouldn't really understand why suicide, and it would be a really long time before I would. I wanted to not hurt as much as I did. There's nothing you can do about the pain. But what I did figure out is that you can lessen your suffering. And
Mm.
if you use healthy coping strategies, you can find that post traumatic growth after tragedy. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't know it's happening,
Right.
but it is.
It's a beautiful picture that last sentence is so important. Sometimes I think, especially when there's tragedy or there's pain or we're experiencing grief, it's in his book A Grief Observed, C.S. Lewis wrote about the death of his love, his wife, and he said the same thing, but the words he used, he said, you know, there was no sudden transformation, but like the warming of a cold room or the dawning of a new day, it was something I didn't even know was happening until it had been happening for quite some time. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because as a mom, as a parent, because there will be people who listen to this, who are hearing this, who are in the midst of that, and there's so much hope in knowing that I don't have to look for some sudden, immediate, all of a sudden I'm fixed.
Right. It's also not automatic. We think of moving forward, there's this sort of American story of you go in the phone book and you come out Superman and you're wearing the cape and it's all done and you've weathered this tragedy. Yeah, but you have to be intentional. You have to work at it. And it's worth it because you learn so many great coping strategies along the way. So, one thing I realized is that alcohol wasn't going to help me. And I wasn't a big drinker, but it's tempting, right? It's tempting to find something that makes you feel good. For some people, that's gambling. For some people, it's porn. For some people, it's drugs and alcohol. And any number of really unhealthy coping strategies that kind of numb it, but then it comes back like a boomerang on steroids. You can't stack it in the closet and because it will come back. So
Right.
it's really important to process those emotions as they come at you. And, they do come at you at huge, giant waves. And you do feel really overwhelmed, but you learn that it won't kill you. And it's okay to scream, cry, and kick the wall.
And Moss, it's interesting to me that as one mother to another, where you immediately went was self-blame. And I think it's important for our families who are listening. This is something that
Yeah.
we hear just continually in our family program, that families are looking at themselves to try to understand where they went wrong as a as a parent?
So when he was addicted to a substance, I was beating myself up then. It was all my fault. What did I do wrong? And I combed over every, from the hot dog I ate when I was pregnant. And that was the only junk food I ate when I was pregnant. I didn't even take Tylenol. I took nothing. But I was sure it was all my fault. And then when he died by suicide, that was compounded, oh, I missed the signs. And I'll tell you that everyone that comes in to my grief group, they carry that guilt. And every time I went to Families Anonymous for substance misuse or addiction, everybody felt like that too. So I will tell you, it is part of the process. And I think it's important to acknowledge it, but also educate yourself as best as possible so that you learn that it is not your fault. Set the
Right.
intention that you are going to forgive yourself for something you didn't have control over. And for me, after he died, I set that intention. I woke up every day, went down that rabbit hole, and I said, one day I'm going to forgive myself. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it sounds like. I don't know what it feels like. But one day I will do that. And one day I woke up and I said, today's the day. And I wrote a blog post to commemorate that I have forgiven myself. I
That's
also
extraordinary.
I also needed to put a fence or some boundaries around that guilt process. It is part of the process. So instead of torturing myself all day long, I said, okay, you're going to torture yourself. You have 5 minutes in the morning to do that. And then you're done for the day. And then tomorrow, when you wake up, you can torture yourself all over again for 5 minutes, and then you're done for the day. That helped me not spend all day in that liquid darkness of, oh,
Right.
it's just so awful. And that helps too. So the two things together really kind of helped me find that path forward after what was a devastating time.
The reason it's so it's so beautiful what you're sharing, those two things in particular, for people to hear, like the first, this is not about. I think people sometimes want. I want a logical, reasonable way to think my way out of pain, and both of those things they're not logical. One, forgive myself for something that I couldn't have controlled. That doesn't make any sense, and yet it doesn't. It doesn't make sense, but that's the reality of what you're experiencing and so many others. And that, I've I could see someone hearing you say, I gave myself that 5 minutes, and they're saying, "Oh, but the thought must have come back at other
It
times
did.
during the day."
It
And
did. And I said exactly what I said. I've done that today. I can do that tomorrow. However, if you're somebody that's doing it 10 times a day, do what works for you. So
yeah,
if you can't, you're like, oh, I can't do, then go down to 8, then go down to 6, do you, do what works for you.
yeah, I love that. It's beautiful and it's empowering, and it says I'm okay to have those thoughts. Yeah, I can't control the fact that they're going to come and get. But at least I can say, "Hey, you belong in that 5 minutes, so I'm not gonna let you
Right.
take over this 5 minutes." It's such a beautiful. So, can you tell us a little bit, you write about turning pain into purpose, and you write about post-traumatic growth. What does that mean from your perspective?
I think it means learning for the loss and really transforming yourself through that tragedy. So the tragedy has all this awfulness around it, but it also has beauty too. I'm not the same person. I can now look out into an audience when I'm speaking And I can spot those who've lost someone to suicide, have attempted suicide. It is sort of this gift my son left me when he left this earth, because I may have been intuitive before, but now I'm like super intuitive. So this experience and his gift to me was being able to see that. And like I said earlier, here's what it looks like. They're not any nice little neat steps of you get to here
Right.
and this happens, and you
Right.
get to here and this happens. We'd love for it to be laid out like that. But everybody's journey is a little bit different. And it is really a tangled mess of emotions that you somehow get the rhythm of over time. And you don't know that you've kind of had this growth until you look back and go, oh, yeah, yeah, I can see that. And you're starting to become that person. So, really, I think it's part of having faith that if you put in the work, it will happen. There were a lot of things I could not see, but just had faith that I've seen this person is my template. They've done it, so can I. And that gave me faith.
Tell us some of the other strategies that you talk to families about in order to help them move forward. I'm using the word move forward. We all know it's much more like a slog. That movement forward is slow, and sometimes feels like you're going backwards versus making any sort of forward movement. So how do you guide families?
I think it's really important for people to feel their feelings. So, a lot of times when people have difficult feelings, they go straight to distraction. But that part in the middle, feeling your feelings, sitting with those really intense, brutal feelings, that's where the healing is happening. That's where the growth is happening. It doesn't feel like it, but that pain really does have a purpose. And the intense feelings last some 60 to 90 seconds. Then you'll feel it lift. And once you feel it lift, that's when you distract yourself with like running, calling a friend, writing, angry gardening, whatever it is for you. You just go for that, and you know what works for you. And I finally kind of got that pattern. I'd be getting ready in the morning, and at some point I would be dropping to the floor, curling up in a ball, screaming and crying. And I mean, like out of control, blubber, snot, really ugly cry. And I just that was my gift to myself. And sometimes I would talk to myself and say, you hurt so much because you love so much. And, just I had my little mantras that I told myself to make it through those 60 to 90 seconds, knowing that, it wasn't going to last forever. No feeling is ever permanent, right?
Right.
One of the most critical roles on Hanley's campus is what we call a recovery advocate. These are individuals in recovery, and they provide peer support. Um, and then certainly when folks are finished with primary treatment, we encourage them to get a sponsor, which again is a form of peer support. And we believe so strongly in shared experiences and individuals who have been there helping to support and guide those who are new to this journey. It sounds much like what you do and what you encourage others to do is that same sort of peer support that is such a critical part of healing.
It is absolutely critical. And for me, writing and connecting with others who had gone through this. Like I said earlier, it gives you that template of what is possible. Other people understand this journey. Your friends are only going to have so much bandwidth. They only have so much endurance for sitting with you in your tragedy. But your peers have a lot more endurance. They're better listeners. They get it. They're shaking their heads, and when you
Right.
talk, even just that gesture of everybody in the room going, I know what you mean. You're like, I've found my peeps. Already you feel a warmth in your chest and you feel it lift. Connection is what human beings are all about. We need connection. Really, it is one of the four basics of good mental health. The others, sleep, eat right, move, connect being one of them. But we have to have that connection, to have that knowledge that I can do this because I know other people are going through it with me. And you'll notice that peers that stay connected really do have better outcomes. And that's not to say it prevents every relapse, but when somebody does lapse, it helps them to get back onto the horse or the wagon. And the same goes with grief or anything else. I mean, we're going to have setbacks. It's not going to be a perfect journey, but you come back to that group that holds you up, that understands and doesn't shame you, or make you feel terrible. I mean, people come in my group and they feel suicidal, and then they feel guilty because they feel suicidal. And I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this openly here. And I don't want, and, first of all, I am so honored you brought it up here. I'm so honored that you felt this was a safe space and you trusted us to share what is the darkest part of your soul. Because think about how hard that is.
Right.
Really, really difficult.
Especially with all the
So,
stigma.
yes. So I think you all are definitely on something really, really critical. And that is I think family therapy is really a family-based treatment is a really good way to go, because then you have your family learning at the same time the person who's in recovery is going through. And then, because otherwise the person going into recovery goes back to that family and they're getting treated the same way. And that can often be detrimental, but not because they're bad people, just because they don't know.
That's right. And that's such an important thing that when we talk about, and we talk about this a lot, we work with families a lot. I'm a marriage and family therapist. You're so right on. And when some families feel so much guilt and and there's so many different emotions that when they hear people say, hey, we've got a program for your loved one. And also we want to work with you as a family. So a lot of times people will hear, well, what do we do? Uh-oh, we did something wrong. We're the And the reality is we all exist in systems, and our systems are sometimes they all need tweaking. And it's the whole system that needs tweaking, and everybody, we believe, everyone, whether it's the patient that has addiction or whether it's we all deserve recovery.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with that. It's not just their recovery, it's ours too.
Absolutely. I want to, as I'm the guy who keeps the time, and eventually we're going to ask you for your last words. But before we do, I think about, I would, the people who have not been through this, those family members and those friends who they care and they love, but they've only got so much bandwidth. They also tend to say things that they think might be helpful, or that really are not helpful. If you had a room full of people who they have not experienced this, what would be some things that you might say, here are some things you might want to do to help and support someone, and you might want to avoid maybe these phrases. What would you say to
Well,
people who, yeah,
I'd say listen more and lecture less. I've had people say, well, you speak on suicide and addiction and all this stuff. Don't you think that that is making you hold on to your grief? What? I said, no, that's actually helping me heal. And I am so, so glad that you've never been through this, but because you've never been through it, you can't possibly know what it's like. And I do what I do so that you never have to find out. But if this really helps my healing process, why would why would that be holding on to my grief? I'm never going to get over this. I'm just
right,
learning to carry it with me. He's still a part of my life. I still have a relationship with my beloved dad. It's evolved over time. And really take a deep breath and try to talk to that person. But I think we do default to trite phrases like, um, the one, he's in a better place. My least favorite. But
right,
when I was grieving, I decided that if somebody said anything at all, that I wasn't going to like hold it against them because it takes a lot of guts for somebody to say anything at all when your child has died by suicide. And it just took people a lot of nerves just to come up to me and talk to me in the first place.
What
So,
would
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. For our listeners though who may have a friend who has experienced this, what would you have wanted to hear?
I have no idea what to say. Can I just give you a hug? The practical stuff, like, I can't fix this. I never will be able to, but you have a dog, and I know how to walk a dog. And is it okay if I come at 5 o'clock today and take your dog for a walk? Saturday, could I come over and we can just watch stupid rom-coms or a replay of an old football game and eat popcorn? If you want to talk, great. If you don't, that's great. I'll just go with the flow. But I'll just sit with you, even if it's awkward and uncomfortable. I'm willing to come over and be uncomfortable with you because it is uncomfortable.
Your
People
words
are
are just bringing tears to my
Yeah,
eyes. You're talking about kindness and empathy.
right. Uh, that is, if you could write a whole book with just the words you just said in the past 30 seconds, title
boy.
it, title it, listen more, lecture less. And 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 that is one of the most powerful, simplest, practical things I've heard in a long time. I hope that we take this and just put it on clips for people and repeat it again and again and again. Thank you so much for that practical. That is so helpful for someone who has not been through this before to have some really practical, like, direction. Um,
It's beautiful. And
And I
Moss, I am so grateful that you were with us today.
Well,
eh,
thank you so much for having me. I'm just always so grateful to be able to, get my message out there and have these conversations. And I have spoken in Palm Beach before too.
well, the next time you do, please come see us. Let us know. We'd love to have you see the center, but also maybe make you some barbecue. And Annemoss, how can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing if they want to get in touch with you or learn more?
So my website is Mental Health Awareness Education, but really, if you just look up AnneMoss Rogers, you should be able to find me. Or if you look up suicide prevention speaker, I'm usually number one or number two. And I do a lot of video on YouTube, and I'm on LinkedIn every single day. I don't do much other social media. I do a little bit, but I focus mostly on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Well, we're super grateful that you were here. Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks, Dr. D. This was pretty amazing.
This was a great episode. Thanks, Dr. D.
And thanks to everybody who's watching or listening. We'll see you next time on The Hanley Effect.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for The Hanley Effect. To learn more about our programs, visit hanleyfoundation.org or call 844-502-4673.